Welcome to the Daz with Nerdy Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Steve Pugh. Join with me always is my lovable, my huggable, my very adorable, my co-host, Kevin Sir Bobbins.
I
Kevin,
have a new mic.
you have a new mic. You sound so much better.
I hope
It's so
everyone can hear
awesome.
me. Sorry about the last few episodes.
Yeah.
We're
It's so
professionals.
occasionally. So we get to do the thing we love to do. The one thing you and I get like hardcore giddy nerdy about. We get to talk about dinosaurs again, and we can't do a dinosaur episode without Dr. Brian Curtice.
Wouldn't
Dr.
be right.
Brian Curtice, thank you for being on the show
Hey,
again.
Steve, Kevin, so good to be back. I have so much fun with you guys. It is
I,
such a treat.
it's so much fun to have you on. And if you guys do, ladies and gentlemen, if you do hear a random, charming, elderly British voice randomly pop on,
It's not
Sam is
elderly.
running a
That's
little bit
me.
late. How old is he?
You called Sam elderly?
I did. He's gonna kill me.
Wow,
Well,
this is recorded. This is live.
it is. It's forever. We're gonna keep this. We're
Yeah.
doing this live, but not live. Recorded. So, but we're not here to talk about. Well, we could say he's a fossil and keep that in. If Sam was any other person besides the sweet-hearted person he is, it would go poorly for me. But he'll laugh and he'll be a good sport about it. But we're not here to talk about him. We are here to talk dinosaurs. We are here to talk about all the stuff that, because Brian, you have been up to so many different things. You have been so busy, and I know we've been. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I've been trying to. Brian and I have been talking on and off. It's just trying to schedule this episode for a couple months now. You have been extremely busy. You're going to be continue to be busy.
Yeah.
What were you tell? Are we allowed to spoil it that you're going?
Yeah, I'm about to get on an airplane to Italy. So I fly out to Italy next week and one-way ticket. So I don't know when I'm coming back. And we've got 9 museums lined up. From
It's
Switzerland's got 3, and then Italy's got a bunch, and slide down into Malta. And depending on how the funds are holding up, we may fly into some other part of Europe since you're already over there. Why not?
absolutely legitimately jealous. I love Spain. I love Italy. There's some fun stuff to do over there. So legitimately, it sounds like life is tough for you
Yeah.
going.
I don't complain because there's no reason to. It took me many years to get to this point to be where I can go and travel and look at museums. My goal is to see every possible dinosaur museum. I'm always trying. I want to see every sauropod bone.
Ooh,
So
oh,
this year we flew into Atlanta and spent a week plus in Georgia, and then we went to Alabama. We slid up to Tennessee, and we were there
wow.
primarily. Though there are some Appalachiosaurs, some dinosaurs we wanted to see in McWayne Center in Alabama, we really wanted to go study animal behavior. So we've
Okay.
been watching how various animals use their tails. I study tails and seeing what they do and how the behavior can be mapped back to the skeleton. And you've got those artists that say shrink wrapped, and paleontologists would get it wrong. That's actually unfair. If you look at a beaver tail, for instance, the caudal vertebrae have these transverse processes that expand out horizontally. All I do is I'd see a tail like that and know it has some kind of fleshy attachment. Would I be right? No. Would I be directionally correct? Yes. And I think that just does us a disservice because of the comparative anatomy we all do.
I agree because I've seen that a lot where you'll see those like social media things like here is it was a one that was done recently. It's always like the hippo or
Yeah.
actually they did zebra recently and they're like this is what it'd be if it would look like if you did the shrink wrap thing. And I go, it's not that simple. As the many conversations you and I have had, whether it's on the episode or where we're just talking, back and forth, um, know that I don't know, and nor am I qualified to do and interpret that way. However, I know the research you guys put into it, and I know that paleontology and you got paleontologists work with zoologists and all sorts of every kind of ologist that you can possibly imagine before
That's
you
true.
guys make a decision because you guys put your names on that, and the internet is forever. And it's so that's the last thing you want to do is make a very flawed decision. And I've seen the paperwork that you guys do and on just like minor behavior for some type of dinosaur. Just like pages upon pages upon pages of research and theses and so yeah, it is a bit biased, and don't worry, Kev and I are in your court. We'll take out whoever you want. We'll fight for you. We got your back. Um, but no, it's you. Like I said, you have been very, very busy. Again, we were talking about this earlier. Like I've been seeing you on TikToks. I've been seeing you on the Facebooks. I've seen you going from a museum to museum to museum, and I'm sitting there looking at all those dinosaurs and all the fossils and everything that you're standing beside and you're describing, and I get giddy. I really do. I sit there and I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And now like I said earlier, my twins, Liam and Isaac, they're really into dinosaurs. So I get to relive that all again. I mean, granted, I will say this. It partially has to do with a movie. Kev, I don't think you've seen it either. The new Jurassic World.
I don't intend to, honestly.
You don't? I
I
will see
don't.
it. So here's the funny thing.
Have
It
you seen
does.
it, Dr. Curtis?
I've only seen the original in the theaters once in '93, and I
This
haven't
is
seen
why
it
I like him.
since. And
So
I saw that because it was part of my job. When I was working I had to go stand outside and hold up a dinosaur leg, and then they let me see the movie. And I read the book way back when it came out. I enjoyed the book immensely, and I enjoyed the first movie a lot too. But everyone has told me ever since it's like you've got a little taste bud that's inflamed, and they just keep biting it and pinching it every time it comes out. You know it's gonna hurt, but they
it
still do it.
oh yeah, yeah. No, it's I will say this, like I know it's Hollywood and I know there's so much flawed with it. I do still get giddy about the movies. I will say this one I was the least giddy about, and I blame you, Brian, because I've talked to you way too much and you just, manipulated my I have as you put it earlier, I have a hard time putting the popcorn hat on. Uh no, I do. I can watch it, but like again, like I was saying earlier, like there was a scene where there was three Spinosauruses, full adult Spinosauruses, and they're in the middle of the ocean, swimming, circling this boat, and they were bait and trapping for a 120-foot long mosasaur to get these guys on this little boat that couldn't have been like more than 10, 15 feet. Like, yeah, like even then I was like, all right, I got to call shenanigans on this one a little bit. And the whole like there's a mutated D Rex and everything. I was like, I don't want to see monster movies. I want to see dinosaur movies. I'm still going to watch it. It does come out tomorrow digitally. My wife doesn't listen to these, thank God, but I will end up purchasing it. Um, but no, like, I'll watch it. I will because I've drank the Kool-Aid. I've seen every single one of them. I'm going to continue to watch them, mostly as out of punishment at this point. But yeah, no, that one I couldn't do it. And like I said, I'm a biggest hypocrite in the world. Uh, I can watch these movies. I can watch Godzilla. I can watch all the zombie apocalypse movies. Walking Dead was one of my favorite shows, but Top Gun. I can't do Top Gun. I can't do Navy movies with the exception of Down Periscope, which is by far the most historically accurate Navy movie out there, bar none. Go watch Down Periscope. You want to know what the Navy's like? That's that. We're a bunch of goofballs. We have fun. Um, but it's like, yeah, where the planes are flying like right next to each other and he's coming in between the towers and everything. Like, no, that dude would have gotten his wings clipped instantaneously. There's no way they're gonna let somebody do that. And then he's like, all right, now I've been out for 40 years. I'm coming back. Dude, nobody's hiring you. Like Top Gun 2 was like, I was like, no, he's way too old. They're having him come back. Oh,
It's like
I
watching
remember.
Star Wars with Neil deGrasse Tyson. You're not allowed to enjoy it anymore.
That's it. That's what it is. What I digress. Yeah, go
I,
ahead, Brian.
Christy, my wife,
Yeah.
Dr. Lopez, she advises that I need to watch these Jurassic Parks because so many people that we interact with have seen these movies and they assume I've seen them. And sadly, I've seen so many clips or I've heard so many people tell me about the movies. I know all the high points. And it's like watching, somebody that has a favorite movie and they quote lots and lots of scenes and you get them ingrained in your head. But I don't know because my challenge is, and this is just a fundamental flaw in myself. You're gonna tell me I need to watch call it seven
Seven
movies
right
at
now.
two
Yeah.
hours a movie, 14 hours. You know how much scientific work I can get done in 14 hours?
I was going to say, do you even have 14 hours
Well,
available to you?
I can probably carve it out in tranches.
Yeah.
But so like this morning, I was working. So we've got right now. I've told them, look, they're trying to. We're naming a couple new dinosaurs. So part of the stuff we've been involved in. I've never named a dinosaur. I only killed them. But I've convinced myself that these are legitimate new genera. And so we're naming three new taxa, all sauropods, all from the Morrison. And
Wow.
it's really exciting for me. And so I need to finish the paper, and they're waiting on me. So I put the Sorrow Squad. It's like the Avengers Assemble. I have the Sorrow Squad on these papers because I'm the tail. I've got another tail specialist. I have the stratigrapher. I've got the limb specialist. You got the skull specialist, the cladist, the functional morphologist. I've got all of these different parts of the body, the histologist to see how old it could be. So I went and pulled off the shelf the best people that I know of that could help on these papers. So it's not going to be
Wow.
Curtice by himself ever. It's me and six, seven authors, depending on the skeleton. And we're very excited because some of these are extremely complete and are bringing really new things to the table. At the risk of oversharing, well, I think so. I've never been convinced about sexual dimorphism in sauropods. Our sample sizes are so small, but in this one particular sauropod's case, it's complete from most of the neck through most of the tail. All the parts are in place, articulated. And about 50 feet away in the same hole in the ground was a second one, which was even more complete. And then we've got a neck from the same hole in the ground that's complete. So I have three necks and two bodies that I can make all these comparisons, and they're all adults, and they're all within a few, a centimeter or so on the length of their centra. And why that matters is now I know they're full adults, but I can now see wild variation, and some of it is variation that we've seen. These are diplodocids, so we got a general gestalt of what we're looking for. But some of these characters make me wonder if maybe these are sexually dimorphic characters. There's characters in the tail that I have never seen present in one that are just, if you found these in two different places, like at Utah and Colorado, you might call them certainly different species, maybe even a different genus, but they're the same animal. So it's wild. I've never seen this, and I know there's other quarries that this could be done with, but I get to do it. So I'm like, all right, let's make this happen.
So first off, freaking amazing. Congrats to you. True honor there. I want to come back to that. We're going to put a pin into that. Uh, I'm going to put my little nerdy hat on here, and I'm going to ask you the question of, could it possibly be, now you're looking into it being a sexual dimorphism. Could it be just inferior genetics in some of these sauropods and it just
Well,
happens to be a little
I'll
bit?
I'll phrase it differently.
Hmm.
There's intraspecific variation that transpires. So on an individual sauropod, the left and right side can be wildly different
Mm.
because of pneumaticity. But these features aren't pneumatic in nature. So the number one cause of variation within these taxa is pneumatic variation. And since these are not pneumatic characters, you then wonder, well, is it something that is just differences? And yes, they are differences. I don't want to use the word inferior,
Yeah,
but I'm
sorry. I'm
no, no,
trying to
no,
find the word.
no. What was it? It's there. There's a difference in robustness and some of these features that are way outside the normal range of variation that we're used to seeing. And so it got us thinking, well, what could cause this wild? So, for instance, in the tail, there's these weird structures. They're the same size animal, ostensibly a similar age. Neither of them show any signs of youth. So, how you can tell if something is not a full adult is on the tailbones, are they fused together, or can you lift the top of the neural arch off of the centrum? There's no hint of the suture, so these have been living a while. And so I got to, and there's certain things like caudal ribs. They're supposed to end at caudal 15 on this particular group, but this one goes back to caudal 18. And the one that goes back farther has these really robust features on the neural arch, on the sides of the centra, and different rugosities, if you will, on the ischion pubis, so part of its pelvis. So I've got these morphological characters that are quite different than the one that sits next to it. Now, maybe it had some kind of bone disease. Maybe, like you said, there was some kind of infection. So we're working with histology to cut through and see what's going on to make sure that these aren't uh, pathological.
Mm.
And we thought we found the tip of the tail, and we still think we found it. But here's the neat thing about technology. I have never personally been involved in CT projects. I read them, I love them, I've been envious of them. But up until 2 years ago, I'd never CT'd anything myself. So we found the tip of the tail. And the tip of the tail was a button about the size of like a giant peanut M&M, two peanut M&Ms melted together in a
Mm.
button shape. And it was found articulated with a bone that was about this long. And then the bone behind it was twice this long, and then the bone behind that was almost twice as long as again. So it looked like we had the tail terminating. And I've known about this bone since 1995, and I have a cast of it somewhere. And it was exciting. I'm like, cool, this is great. So I said, well, let's CT scan it. So I was talking to a colleague of mine, Tom Vanderlinden, who is now in Germany working on his PhD. And he was saying, well, maybe it's a tail club, joking around, half joking. I said, well, let's scan it. So I'm at a talk. I'm giving a talk at SVP, and I stole his idea because it was brilliant. I said, oh, maybe we have a tail club. We're going to test it. So Tom's like, what the hey, man? You just stole my idea. I said, no, you're lead author. I'm going to make it. I'll go get it paid. He's like, I'm not telling you anything. I'm like, so I get the bone CT scan, and the CT scans come back, and we were not at all prepared for what we found. So this little bone and the next longer bone turned out to have been broken, and somehow or another the bone rehealed. So I'd never seen anything like it. Where imagine if you took your fibula, let's take your radius, and you broke it, and the front half of the radius healed separate from the back half of the radius. So they're two separate bones if you look at it without CT scanning it. So what we realized was when you put that bone together, it's the same length as the one behind it and the one behind it. So it's kind of cool. So now we're wondering pathologically, is the tip of the tail really the tip? Or was this thing involved in some kind did it get stepped on? Did it hit something? Was it bitten off? It just adds to the mystery of why. But this CT technology is mind blowing because you could take the bone and you could measure the bone and you could study it anywhere in the world, and it's like you're there. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Kevin.
You came in the
Finally,
coolest
someone that
part.
can understand what Brian is saying.
So I wanted you to finish your thing. I have a question. I mean, I know you probably can't tell, but I'm just curious, just because the way you were describing the bones healing, and even though they were staying in continuity with previous bones, is it a possibility that even just on sauropod level, if not others, um, like gnolls and other types of lizards that can regenerate parts of their tails, and is that a possibility with sauropods?
So I wish. Oh, I
Okay.
wish. Tail autonomy. It's where they break off and then the tail grows back, but there's no bone in that tail. It's just cartilage. And what's cool is I was at a talk earlier this year where a young kid, it was a poster he was presenting, and he showed we know a variety of small sized reptiles in various clades that aren't related to one another have that capability. So it's something that evolution has provided for animals in the tail multiple times. I don't know if you guys ever played Battletech, but it's always reminded me of the one shot SRM-4 that you could mount on the shoulder. Why you would ever use a one shot to save like a half a ton? I never made sense to me. Just go medium small lasers. But it's that one, it's the panic button.
Mm.
And it was in a Tanystrophiid, which are those really long neck, kind of long tailed, just bizarre reptiles, and I'd never seen it there before. And it showed CT scans, and you can see clear as day the vertebra. Usually, it's one bone that it's born with, and that's where the break's going to happen. So if you're the lucky predator, like on a gecko, that gets in front of that bone, well, even if the tail falls off, it's not getting away. But
Oh.
normally, it breaks off really close to the hips. So most of the time, the predators grab that tail and then it's off and running. And if you grow up in Arizona, you have geckos, and invariably you learn as a young lad to handle geckos extremely carefully and never touch their tail. Because as soon as you kind of grab it, it's wriggling in your hand with blood leaking, and that thing's gone. So I have looked for and have dreamed about finding that because that would be a nature style paper. That would be the pinnacle of publication. But alas, that is not the case. I hope so, and maybe I'll be wrong someday. But I've looked at this tail at the end of this tail. Now it's made me think, and I need to go to China someday to look at the tail clubs that they have. Because could those tail clubs be vertebrae that broke and had infection and healed in this gnarled mass? So
Oh,
when you look at an ankylosaur tail club, it's actually a series of osteoderms, these big these scutes. And so there's one in the triangle at the very, it's a triangle at the end. And I'll have to pull one up. And then there's one on either side. So they're all built the same way. They're not like this one mass of bone. They're a bunch of bones that grow together and they're very distinct. So the thought is, can we go look with CT scans on these Chinese tail clubs and see if they're actually truly defined as a tail club would be, or if they're just pathological damaged verts. And then that leads you to the question of, well, maybe they're damaged, but they kept wailing away at it anyway. Or, hey,
yeah.
that's helpful. I turned a broken tail into something good. Who knows?
I mean, that's an absolute possibility because the first thing that comes to my mind is boxers when they get, when they've been through the ring a few times, they start to develop certain calluses and, bone formations from fractures and of that sort, and even to the what's it called, cauliflower ear. So
Yes.
I absolutely can imagine that happening on a big sauropod level that would use what those tails. How fast could they whip them in self defense?
I'm not going to agree with the whip of
Okay.
supersonic speed. I mean, they can go fast. I don't
Yeah,
want to take anything away from the speed, but I'm not saying speed of sound. Let me pull this up for you here, if I
yeah,
can share my screen, just so you hear
absolutely,
what I'm
yeah.
talking about.
I'm
This
thinking
is
about dogs that whack their tail on a coffee table.
Oh,
okay.
all right.
Or, I mean, do dinosaurs just step on their own tails because it's a big dangly thing between its
Um,
legs?
well, let's come back to that because
Ooh.
that's it's a mystery I don't know the answer to. Notice this is a bone here. You don't see my cursor?
Yes, yeah, we can see it.
See how clear that is? That's a bone. That's a bone.
Wow.
There's an osteoderm here, 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 and then they've got separate vertebrae here and here. Notice these are the postzygote apophyses that are overlapping. This makes a rod. So when you look at it, this is called the handle, and here's the whole thing, maybe. So you can see these are vertebrae that are fused together, and then these osteoderms come together at the end. When you look at the Chinese sauropods, they're not doing that. They're doing
Interesting.
so in my mind, now that I've been looking at these surfaces, they look more gnarled and they lack that clear underlying definition of osteology. So I'd like to think that the Chinese paleontologists have thought about this and that they've seen that. And I just need to go because it's trust but verify. I need to go trust, but I need to go verify. As
Uh,
for the tip of the tail, the diplodocids have that 20-foot bone chain at the back of their tail. It's 20 feet of middle fingers, 6 to 8 inch long middle fingers, just pushed together. And what I can't figure out is they have no neural arch. So if you look at a tail, they have the spinal cord's got to run through the top of the tail, and it's covered by this neural arch, this literal arch of bone that sits on top of it. And with most animals, that peters out at the end of the tail. But in and that also has various muscles that come from the femur, like the cauda femoralis longus and brevis. These muscles run down from the back of the femur where there's a big trochanter it attaches to, and they run down the tail, and you can see where they finally peter out. Well, what keeps that last 15, 20 foot of bone chain from dragging on the ground?
Mhm.
or does it just swing around? We know the tails are up high, but some of these had long enough chain that they probably would have just drooped and touched the ground if they drooped. So if they don't droop, what mechanism is holding that upright? There's no neural arch. So I don't know. And I've been asking my buddies, and they're like, oh, I never thought about that. So that's part of our research that we're thinking. And there's this great specimen in Denver that's not in the literature yet that commercial collectors found and donate, or private people donated to the museum. And I'm hoping to be part of the project that studies that because it's the back part of the tail, the whip tail. It goes from where the tail is not whipped to whipped, and they have the whole transition, and they've got a ton of them. And the Carnegie Museum, I think it's the Carnegie Museum is an Apatosaurus that all has 82 vertebrae, and it has all the whip. So we've got the specimens that we can look at and maybe tease that apart. But that's where me as a alpha taxonomist kind of guy, I fall apart. I need a functional morphologist. I need an anatomist. I need a team that we can help put this together. That's why I love to work with people.
That is insane. First off, I didn't realize you needed, not that I thought you were like it's a one person job for any paleontology thing, but like holy cow, like the designated areas that are required. It's a we're getting to see how the sausage is made here, not to put it too lightly. It's
The,
amazing.
if you so the days of one person writing a monograph, Hatcher, Holland, Gilmore, those were great, but they didn't have the comparative material around us. They didn't have 100 years of new data. They didn't have the technological tools we have, and so their works have stood up the test of time to an extent. Anatomy is anatomy. In fact, I'd argue they knew their anatomy better than most anatomists know their anatomy today. I'm always going through old literature. And I'm on my post today. I made a joke. This I felt like it's the Simpsons already did it because the joke is the Simpsons have done everything. So I was looking for a ceratopsian brow horn. I've always wondered about the keratinous sheath and how
Mm.
much of that keratin does it have one? Do we know of any? And there's a paper in 2010 by a guy named Happ where he found some sheath at the base of a horn core and did some really cool anatomical items. Proposed that the horns were thermoregulatory in function on top of all these other things because of the huge vascularization present. And animals that are highly vascularized horns, like certain goats, which is what he compared them to, use their horns to help a heat exchange. So I thought, okay, that's cool. Horns do lots of things. We've talked about the shield being that. Well, maybe it's in the horns. Just as serendipity had it, I also made my post today that had a Triceras, which is the Jackson's chameleon genus, and a Triceratops, and I stacked them one on top of the other. And I thought, oh, I'm so clever. Gilmore in 1920 did the exact same thing, except back then it was Camelio. Sorry, wrong genus, pal. But he did it. So I'm like, okay, he beat me to it. So now I'm reading through his paper. Not only did he beat me to it, but in 1907, Lull said, yeah, I saw carbonized film that Hatcher collected, or he saw on this Triceratops horn, but he didn't collect it. So they knew about this horn stuff in the keratinous sheath in the 1900s. And then they have this beautiful skin of ceratopsians. Now, if you're like me, you always grew up, or in the last few years, hearing about the Houston specimen. I think they call it Lane, this Triceratops that has this beautiful scutes on it. And that's what we all hear about. And that's because of the dark ages in paleo. We should talk about that. We'll come right back to that.
We will
Well,
come back to that.
Gilmore figures this stuff, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is the stuff that everyone's jumping around celebrating how smart we are. And this is in 1920, and it's already written about, and the pictures are there. Let's go read our own past. Now, in my defense, that's a ceratopsian. I don't study those. I just happen to stumble across it. But what the heck, ceratopsian researchers? Go read your history. Here's where I say dark ages. I'm on a tsunami here.
Go for it. I love this. This is
But
why we
but
love having you on.
but I've been thinking about this a lot.
Mhm.
So think about Huxley, Darwin's bulldog, and how he knew birds and dinosaurs were related. And he figured that out with Archaeopteryx. And he was writing this stuff. If you read his 1830s papers, you're like, wow, this could have been written in 2030. It's really prescient. It's brilliant in how it's done. And as we go through the late 1800s until the Bone Wars start, You've got these folks who are taking modern animals and all of the anatomy they know, and they're applying it to these fossils, and they're coming up with what we now know to be right stuff 100 years ago. And then Marsh and Cope got into their epic urination match and chased Leidy out, made everybody else bail. A couple Canadians like Lamb were playing around for a while, but everyone got out of dinosaurs. Gilmore, Hatcher, and Holland, they played with sauropods, thank goodness, and they did some great work in the 30s. But then the World War One took a bunch of talent away, and World War Two completely eliminated paleo. There is almost no publications, forget naming taxa, from the late 30s up until the 60s, late 60s come around. Colbert carried the torch for paleo more or less by himself through this dark time of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs became slow, plodding, the butt of the jokes. So we went just like in Western culture. We have this Greek Enlightenment and this fantastic era. And then this dark age sat in until Ostrom had the Renaissance started in 69 with this Deinonychus paper. So there was from, call it 36 to 69, there's a dead zone. You almost never cite a paper in there. They just don't exist. And the ones that were done really not great because they were done by dabblers. They weren't done by hardcore folks. And then the 70s come around, and you've got this Walter Alvarez in the late 70s comes up with the meteorite crashing into the earth. And then paleo spends an inordinate amount of time doing two dumb things. Instead of welcome the foreigners coming across our land from the old astro guys, no, they can't be right. And we spent a decade plus fighting them tooth and nail, doing all of these crazy faunal analyses, telling them why they can't be right, even though there's an iridium layer that it's right, but we couldn't accept it. And then we also had to fight dinosaurs or birds, and we battled that. So paleo, I should write a book about the nonsense of the cultural zeitgeist of the paleontologist. And you can name people. That's the other thing. It wasn't just anybody. You did it to me. Little Solway Firth from Slipknot reference there. It's a great song. You've got these guys that are just being clowns, and grad students scurried away. Mammals flourished because mammal paleontologists they had their nonsense. They had their sense together. So this dark age of paleo has resulted in students not looking at the past because how is my wife's a clinical psychologist. She's like, Brian, you routinely talk about 1877 manuscripts. We don't talk about 1877 psychology stuff. That's all moot. But you guys, you're so focused on them. But now to finish off my diatribe, I have discovered that those guys played a really dirty game. And some of the cladists are doing it today, which is they illustrated their specimens, which we were brought up in our grad school days to think of the Marsh plates and the Gilmore monographs as photographs drawn by hand. And so what they have done is they restored the skulls as they thought they would be, not as they were. And I have now taken a bunch of specimens and held them up next to their plates, and the plates are clearly modified. They're clearly drawn poorly. Why does this matter? If you're a cladist scoring characters, you're scoring it off of something you think is real. And because museums seem to think the public wants real fossils mounted and therefore unstudyable. We cry about if a home user buys a fossil and puts it in their house. You know what I can't study? Any dinosaur on display. Good luck trying to figure out the Opisthocoelous degree on a cervical vertebra on a mounted skeleton. You can't do it. And when they say, "Oh, Brian, but you can take the bone down," but will you let me? And I want to lay the whole thing out. Well, of course you won't, because your exhibits people now own it. It's lost to science. So paleontology has a whole bunch of hypocritical problems that we're seeing coming to a head with individuals buying specimens for egregious amounts of money. To the paleo budget, to them, it's 5 days of interest and they move on with life. It's good to be rich, I guess. And so that goes full circle to our CT scan. Today, we're not allowed to publish on items that are not in a public repository, despite the fact you can't study the specimens at the American Museum of Natural History that are on display because they're behind plate glass and it's umpteen $1,000 if they will grant you permission to take the glass down. Now, I won't go there, that'll get me in trouble. So, but the thing is, offline, remind me of that because I have a solution, but it's not a problem.
Offline, I got you. Don't worry.
But so if you CT scan an item, you can't copyright a CT scan. And I wondered why not? Because it's a perfect replication of a natural object, and you can't copyright a natural object. So I can control what the CT scan files are supposed to be allowed to do, but in the digital age, that's irrelevant. Yeah, don't do that. And as soon as you've got it, you send it to 5 people, and then it's uploaded and it's Napster for paleo all over again. So the problem is academics are old school academics want accessibility to the specimen, but why is it that they still allow people to publish on Stromer's blown up specimens, on Amphicoelius fragilis that's lost, on these specimens that are gone? It's okay to publish on those, but if I had a CT scan, let's say, Steve, you had a beautiful velociraptor in your house and you had the CT scans of it, I wouldn't be allowed, a journal wouldn't let me publish it. How
I'd have to
silly.
donate to public to a museum before you be allowed to use it.
And then when they put it on display, I can't touch it. So, and I don't have a CT scan of it. So it makes no sense. So we're coming to a reckoning in the next few years. There's going to be some major cultural shifts because the young paleontologists appreciate CT scan. Now, it's not a panacea. I just scanned. So Saurophaganax is an animal that was sunk by Andy Dannison et al. Earlier, or December of last year, when they said it's a nomum dubium. They couldn't decide if the holotype is a theropod or a sauropod. So they said, you know what? We're just going to make it a nomum dubium and say it doesn't exist. And we're going to grab a smooth post-orbital bone and make it the holotype of a new taxon, Allosaurus annax. We won't go into the fact that, how do you know that? I don't even want to go into that. That's just getting me mad. But I told them they're wrong. And I don't have to agree with their paper. Their paper's brilliant. And they are excellent writing, great approaches. They give me a whole lot to think about. And and I liked that. But I've been very vocal on socials to make a drag race out of this. So only one of us can be right. And we're going to CT scan the holotype is the plan. And I will know. But first I have to prove, can I tell a theropod from a sauropod using CT scans? So I just finished. You're the first person to ever hear this right here and now, folks. I
There
say
you go.
stuff for DNA because
DNA.
that's what nerdy ambitions. Doesn't get any nerdier than arguing over Saurophaganax.
Yeah, this is on an nth level. But continue your tangent, sir.
So I went and grabbed 20 some Allosaurus dorsal vertebrae from Cleveland Lloyd Dinosaur Quarry, and I grabbed a bunch of Apatosaurus vertebrae from Cactus Park. Monotypic bone beds, for the most part. We know they're Apatosaurs. We know they're Allosaurus. We know that in Oklahoma, it's an Apatosaur or it's an Allosaur. So I went and I got them CT scanned. And then I brought in my CT scan assassins. And we've been combing through this data. And I say CT is not a panacea because about half of the Cleveland Lloyd scans, you can't use them for what I want to use them for because they have pyrite or siderite, meaning when the x-rays hit it, it's like putting metal on them. They scatter, they beam harden. You can't see the features I need to see. But on the other half, they have features. So without revealing too much, what I can tell you is I have now a hypothetical way of discerning a sauropod from a theropod in the neural arch region that is present in Oklahoma. So my next step is to CT scan the Oklahoma specimen and then figure out if this feature is present or absent. And if it's present or absent, I can at least suggest if it's one way that Saurophaganax is a theropod and it is a valid theropod. If it's not present, and then I have to say that it's likely a sauropod, and I have to eat a crow cake that I'm going to have made live because I will eat crow because I crowed so much about how I think the kid's wrong. So I'm willing to take the bet, but But the thing is, the Saurophaganax was the sexy, exciting thing that got people interested in the project. The reality is, the sexy, exciting thing to me is knowing whether or not I can tell from some scrappy bone if it's a theropod or a sauropod, and that allows us to further understand, because they're Saurischians, so they both have air sacs, the differences within those two groups. So it's really a bigger question we're solving, but it's almost like save the koala and then you turn out to save 27 other species of animals. It's my halo effect. I'm saving the big pinnacle creature. What, there's a term for that. The glow, whatever it is. I'm saving
Yeah.
the sexy animal. In this case, Saurophaganax, we're going to fight it out. But science as a whole will benefit. And what's great is I've got those guys on the paper. So one of us is going to have to be apologizing to the other in a paragraph.
Well, and the thing, to take from this is if you are correct, and we're rooting here, we're in your corner, um, is you're adding a much more usable tool for the overall paleontology community, and it's going to help with research and maybe even backtrack looking at other previous specimens and going, okay, maybe we did make a mistake here. Now we can utilize this to check and balance and make sure other species and other dinosaurs are correct or incorrect, and we might actually discover a completely different species of dinosaur in this. So you
Absolutely.
have a new fun tool. By the way, I just want to put this on record. This was all from the fact that we were talking about how you're going to be naming as a group naming 3 new dinosaurs, and we were congratulating you on
Oh
that.
yeah, I
That
was
was
I
a
was
hell of a
there.
tangent. I love it.
Yeah, so that
I
that's a
love it.
soliloquy. I
Yeah.
tend to get rolling and like my voice. I like to hear the sound of my voice, I guess.
I
Yeah.
know, you know what? This is what we love having you on the show for. We love when you go and you get all riled up and you just go into this and you are so expressive and so passionate about dinosaurs and about the paleontology world. And we love it. We're here for the ride. There's not one of us that are sitting here going, like, you're saying a lot of really pretty words. I'm not going to lie.
Well,
I'm not
speaking
going
of that,
to.
I want to ask, speaking of new and sexy, where do you see paleontology going in the future? Because there's only so many dinosaur bones. There's you only have access to so many things. Like I said, you can't research things that are clearly on display. But with technology, is it going to be easier for more people to get into the profession,
Yeah.
or are
Great
they going to lose
question.
interest?
Great questions. And so I like to say, and I like to say CT scanners democratize science, because I have a colleague that I'm working. We're co-authoring. I'm co-authoring papers with a person in South Korea, a graduate student, and a gap year grad student out of India. And both of them have expressed utter frustration because they don't have the budgets to get to the United States to look at specimens. And they have some great ideas, and even my colleagues in Australia. So I'm working with 3 different continents, and all of these kids have the same problem: access. And if we had CT scans of all of these specimens they're looking for, here's a fun fact. We're writing a paper on this. It'll be a blog first, but you heard it here first. Less than 1/3 of all T Rex bones are figured. Think about that. The most popular dinosaur, the most important dinosaur that gets the most air coverage. And yet the paleontologists haven't bothered to photograph, publish photos and videos, much less CT scan all of the elements. So if you want to run the specimens, you have to go to the museums and visit them. Part of it is museum control. As soon as a museum CT scans a specimen and uploads it, they've lost control. And here's a real world example. Let's take all of us and let's take this pen. Now, if this pen is sitting in a collection, let's say at Arizona State, there's a museum of Northern Arizona. It's sitting there, and Sam thinks that he can do a really cool project on this, and Kevin has a great idea about it, and Steve has an idea about it, and I have an idea about it, and two of our ideas, Steve and I have a similar idea. The curator at that museum has a problem. This is only one bone, and who gets to study it? Even if it's virtual, who do we want a free for all where then it becomes a race to publish first, and science may suffer because Steve, you have to outrun me and my idea?
Sure.
Or should we let like Microsoft? Okay, here's the problem. All of us go, and then the team that solves it the best wins, and the rest of you are fired. So that's kind of the way paleo goes. What if this is a new animal and we all want to name it? So the curator is there as the traffic cop. The collections manager's job is to keep paleontologists in line. The problem is they honor old urine. Some people have peed on specimens 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Oh, Brian's studying that. Yeah, back in 95, and I haven't been back, and you're still saying that? That's embarrassing. So if you digitally make this available to the world, now anyone can study it for anything. And so you as the museum don't have people come to your collection to visit. If people don't come through and through the till, I don't pay to visit museums, but I sign a logbook and they have to report how much was the collection used? Because someone somewhere, either a government institution or a 501c3 is paying to keep these specimens curated. And if no one is visiting the museum, why are we still doing that? It's an expensive endeavor. So there's this entire mess of, if we digitize every bone, do we need the real bones? So then maybe sell the real bones, put them out in people's houses and distribute them, because do we need them? Isotope paleontologists right now are wanting to stab my eyes out because they need chunks of the bone to run their isotopic analyses. Sorry, guys. You do
So
cool work, but in my world, I don't need you. The new scanners can tell me possible sex from a different way. Get this. Dual energy scanners can go through a bone and pull out calcium levels. So I'm in the process of testing this, because if I see a flat calcium on, say, a femur, it's probably a male. If I see spiky calcium, egg laying events, sexually mature female. Because when you lay an egg, you pull calcium from your body, so it dips, and then you bring it back, so you have a spikes. So I have requested from the local Rooster Cogburn Ostrich Ranch 10 femora of males, 10 femora of females. They know the age, I don't. And I want to test it on the scanner and see if I can guess the sex. If I go 10 for 10 on each one, that's really powerful statement, because dinosaurs are birds. Part two, they can also, in that same scanner, count lags, lines of arrested growth. And that's a minimum age at death. So, because this is a ranch, they know the age at death and sex. I can get a twofer. I scan these 20 bones, and in theory, if I tell you it's at least 6 years old based on these lines, and it's a female, if I match all of these right, I might be in nature. We got pinnacle home run ball.
that's impressive. You're using the ranch as your control. They have all the answers. They're the
They just
teacher. Yeah, that's impressive. Um,
and so yeah, so cool stuff out there.
yeah. So I do have one question, because I'm talking. You brought up the pen and all us trying to come up with an idea.
I have a lot of money, but I'm gonna need that pen for like 10 years.
So I again, we support everything that you do. We're very passionate about it. Two things here. I get where you're coming from on your side, because whoever's post publishing, there's the quickest, or whoever has rights, the chances of it being wrong, or there being inaccuracies in the statements or whatever is published, are greater. Whereas using group work, it's more likely that it's going to be more successful. It's going to be more accurate. Counter are the chances of, if I'm going back to old elementary school, where we're all sit there and like we have a picture and we draw it together as a group from their perspective, respectively. Is it the risk that if I sit here and like, hey, let's draw a dog, and we start drawing I draw a dog, then I hand it over to you and you hand it to Kevin, and then it hands it to Sam, that it could be absolutely, there's more inaccuracies because it's our own personal interpretation of what we perceive a dog is versus what actually the dog could be. Is that a possibility in their
In
field?
elementary school, middle school, high school, my whole life up until graduate school, I was like, just get out of the way. I'll draw the dog, and we're done with the assignment.
Mhm.
It's right. Let's get away. I group projects. Everyone wanted to be on my team because they know that I just did the work. We got an A+, and then everybody else got the goof off. And I always covered for them because I didn't want to get beat up. So if you have enough of a posse of people, it worked out great. But let's do the dog example. If you want to draw the dog's tail, I go get a veterinarian that studies the tail, and that tail is spot on. He probably can't even spell tongue. I go get the guy that can do the tongue of the dog as an expert on or the dental vet. He draws the whole front end. I get the person to do the legs. If I go bring in the experts on the part of the animal, then the only part that runs into trouble potentially is my role as the lead author, as the conductor, when I take all of these individual silos and weave together a narrative. But I'll give you an example that we just lived real time of scoring these dinosaurs. So unfortunately, the world we live in, we have to do cladistics, and I hate it. And it's really silly, but the youth think it's cool because it involves a computer. So normally it's done by one person sitting there in a room by themselves with the bone in another country, lost, tired, exhausted. It's a train wreck. But no one tells you that part of it. They're like, we were in Germany. Yeah. And all you saw was nonsense. You're staring at bleariness. We had three of us. Yeah, me, who's not a cladist, but I've seen a lot of stuff, and the other two that are cladists and understood what the characters are supposed to be. So we made a deal. We would score all of these dinosaurs because there's 300 characters you have to go. Is it present or absent? 300 times on real obscure characters. Is the suprapresagapophysial lamina bifurcated or not bifurcated at the proximal end of the neural spine apex? And so first you got to figure out what they mean. And sometimes we couldn't figure that out. One time we called my buddy at 1 a.m. in Alabama, Ray, and he was awake. He was like, what's wrong? I'm like, we need you to look at this on Zoom and tell us, is that the muscle scar they mean? And because he's my best buddy, he's like, yeah, that's the muscle scar they mean. But you know what? That's a terrible character because some things have weak muscle scars and some have. What if it's old? It's going to have a big muscle scar. That's an ontogenetic character. Throw it out. I'm like, thank you. We can't, but we will put a big asterisk and say dumb character in our analysis. So, but to your question about, we would debate it. And so we all would, it was like rock, paper, scissors. Present or absent, 0 or 1, 2, 3. And then we would say our answers. And if we all agreed, it was very simple.
Nice.
But if two of the people agreed, then the one person was given the chance to convince them why they were wrong. I was the guy that disagreed whenever the disagreements happened. I was usually the bad guy. And they would show me the error of my ways, which was convenient. But sometimes I was able to explain to them why they were wrong. But it wasn't that they were wrong, it was that their character was written poorly. So when you're working in a matrix and a rubric that you didn't write and you're forced to be within it, you have to make some assumptions. So to your question, absolutely it can happen. But I think that if people are objective and they leave their preconceived notions hat, which you can never truly do, but you try, it works better. Another breaking, you heard it here first. I learned that cladists often score characters as they should be, not as they are. And this boggled my mind. For instance, if a vertebra has a transverse process that's supposed to be, it's a diplodocid, and you know it, you can look at it and say it's a diplodocid. So the transverse process is this little, it comes off the side, and there's a spine. And if this transverse process is less than half the height of the spine, then it gets a 1. But what if it's eroded? So there's the third option is question mark because the feature's not present. Every time it wasn't present, even though I knew it was going to be a 1, I put a question mark. Turns out, in looking at other people's matrices, they put a 1 because it's supposed to be. And I don't like supposed to be. I like as is. And if your science, if your magic computer is great, it'll figure it out. Turns out, it doesn't work as well. It's not as clean as they like. So there's going to be a reckoning on cladistics because if you're scoring from photos only, if I change something by 5 degrees, you might score it differently. Those CT
That's
scans
true.
are super important for that because you can rotate it around, you can zoom in and out, you can draw pictures, but museums don't necessarily want CT. They can't cry about it being expensive anymore. Most vets or doctors will CT scan things for fun for free. And so you can't tell me it's expensive when I get all these for free. That's not right. So then what's the excuse? Well, it's labor. Well, there's a lot of you have volunteers that will happily join one museum person in a car to help unload and load. There's damage to the bones. Yes, we did knock a few pieces off, but that's called glue. and we know how those work. We're masters at adhesives. That's just one of the things you learn is accelerants and how to glue things together.
That's
So
awesome.
I think that paleo in general, as more and more, look at Morphosource. It's a website that people upload their files to. The cool thing about that is there's some 3D scans out there. The bad thing is they don't upload the raw files. They upload the processed files. And why that's important is how you process them matters. So my guy Ray is a genius and he's got $20,000 industrial strength software. It'll do amazing things. In fact, I'm gonna show you something. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Hold on for a minute. This is cool. Again, all this is, you're the coolest guy, so I share these cool stuff.
I
Nobody
love
else
it.
gets this. All right, I'm gonna show you the punchline one. So I'm
Okay.
just to save time, I won't do the build up like I do. There's a dramatic way to do it, but I'm just gonna do the finished product. So this yellow is what's on display. This is what when you walk up to the shelf, that's what it looks like.
Okay.
This is what the CT scan. By the way, CT automatically removes all plaster, all fake stuff gets knocked away. Look what's not present in the. I don't have the spine. I don't have the transverse process. All I have is the center of the bone.
Wow.
So if this is mounted, it's going to have. This is a mounted specimen. So they made it look pretty. So by making it look pretty, they've now ruined all of these characters by making you think they're real. And now you put ribs on it. A rib head was here, and the other one's down here. So you can't even tell what's fake. That's a
Because
train. That's a scientific travesty.
so
Go ahead.
by what they've created here, by adding in the plastics and what they believe and their perceptions and their perceived beliefs, it's making a biased opinion on the rest of the anatomy of the dinosaur.
Yes, but you know what? They don't care because they are exhibits people. Their exhibits people's job is to entertain people, so they put things on display. Here's what I think needs to happen as well. And I might do this myself. I'm starting to get enough pull. There needs to be a survey that asks right now if someone were to survey, if they did it, they claim it's been done, but no one has ever shown me the survey results. So I don't even believe it's done. I think it's a Snopes false. What I think has happened is the public wants to see real dinosaur bones and they want to see them.
100%.
That's true. But here's what, if you phrase the question this way, Mr. Public, would you like to see real dinosaur bones mounted so they can never be studied? Or would you like to see a cast of the real dinosaur bones mounted and the original bones laid out underneath so you can see what was found versus what is the animal would have looked like?
I'm going to be
Speaking
honest.
for the public, I want
Go
to see
ahead,
real
Kev.
dinosaurs.
But do you want to see the real dinosaur bones mounted as real bones with rods drilled through them so they can't be studied?
No.
It's
So
fair if you
I don't
do.
care.
So
If it
here's
looks like a
here,
dinosaur, I'm happy.
here's the thing I will say in absolute honesty. Most people don't realize how many are not real bones that are really mounted up. So if you told me without me physically touching it and messing with it, I'm really not going to know. What here's the thing that I don't think I of course I want to see a skeleton. I always want to see the big monster skeletons 100%. Regardless if it's a Paraceratherium, it's some prehistoric mammal, or it could be Dilophosaurus. Shout out to my boy. It's I would rather see that, but I also would like to see personally. I like the idea of when you go, you see like the archaeology exhibits where they have bits and pieces of houses and buildings and stuff like that, and they make a silhouette and they're like, "Hey, this is what it would have looked like," and they cut out the shape on like a wall and it's a tapestry. Paraceratherium, yeah. Um, I love it. But I would like to see that too, where it's like, so they have the silhouette and you could
Yep.
have some type of, and it doesn't even have to be the actual bones. It could be replicas of what they have actually found. I'm not going to know the difference because no matter what, if I get up and I touch the bones, I'm going to get the security guard that's going to come over and say, "Sir, you need to leave again."
So,
So,
so I pulled this up on purpose because I love it's my favorite mammal. So much love.
yes.
These
Yeah.
are original bones here. These
I
are
see it's
original
missing some
cervical
vertebrae.
vertebrae. And they
Yeah.
mounted them. And if you zoom in here, this is original bone. This original bone, this is cast they made in between because they could guesstimate how long the shaft should be. Original bone, plaster, all this is plaster. But what they've done is these are studyable with the tall ladder after hours and
Yeah.
some begging. But this is in Tokyo. They're great. But you get a sense of how big the animal is. What I would prefer is if they had put these on a shelf right here, so you can
Mhm.
get right up close to them. And these were cast like these. They reproduced the entire neck to what it would have looked like in life that we think, and then brought the bones down here. So as a researcher, I can easily study them. But as a visitor, you still see the skeleton and you see the original bone. So you can see, oh, they only found this. So the haters can say, well, that's all they found. And look, they got the rest. And I'm cool with it. You know, the haters spent money too. And for the other people, they can go, wow, look, we are able to look at these bones and know the rest because we do anatomy. So my
100%
thought,
agree.
so
100%
Mhm.
agree.
that's my ideal. But what happens today is they mount real sauropods and then they're unstudyable and then I can't know things. So that's why when they take them down and make them naked before they redo them, I always fly over and look at them. But when they do that, they should CT scan every bone and they should at least surface scan them. But they never do. And it frustrates me. It bothers me immensely. So it's a struggle.
I
Mhm.
mean, especially with like 3D printing technology and stuff that these days, like they could make very like amazing reproductions based on the information they have without wasting actual artifacts.
I've got some
Everything you
beautiful
see,
museum quality replicas in my
Yeah.
collection.
Yeah.
that's what I sell. Fossil Crate sells 3D prints of the original material.
Oh, that
We
segue. Ooh.
high-end surface scan.
I
What was
wasn't
that?
I wasn't paid for that either.
Thank you. Yeah, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
next time we get some, we'll send it your way. But
Ah.
oh wait, don't edit that part out. So what we
No.
end up doing is doing science, in my opinion, and that comes down to the blog I wrote, which infuriated many of my colleagues. So there was the Ceratosaurus you may have seen that just sold for $26 million before fees, 30 million after the fees at Sotheby's 2 weeks ago. I know the guy really well. I've known him for many years. He goes from not having money to now never having to work again. Generational wealth. It's pretty cool. But he bought it from the museum that had it on display. Here's a dirty fact. I'm gonna pull this up because this is something that no one appreciated me exposing.
Yeah, guys,
But
if you're disgustingly rich, you can just go buy dinosaurs.
yeah, but here's the best part. Let me share my screen one more time.
And check us out on YouTube to see all these really cool dinosaur
Yes,
shots that Brian
please.
shared with
For
us.
our listeners.
All right, can museums sell fossils? So I wondered that. So this is the specimen that it sat
Oh, it's
since
beautiful.
2000. That's all original bone there. It's a juvenile Ceratosaurus. It's extraordinarily important. I actually asked to research it, which is how I found out it was going to be sold before anyone in the world knew, except the people doing it. Different story another day. Probably actually never sell that one. But let me see if I have any pictures. Okay, so the problem is this is a 501c3 museum. And so they're like, well, how can it be sold? Well, it turns out the American Museum of Natural History is a 501c3. So there's a process that all museums have called de-ascensioning. And our Society of Vertebrate Paleontology allows de-ascensioning. And the American Museum of Natural History has a policy, which I bring up here. How do you de-ascension it? Well, do you follow these instructions? And the key thing is if it doesn't follow the mission of the museum, it can automatically be de-ascensioned. And if it's going to be $25,000 or more, okay, then you just got to go talk to people in your museum, your manager. If it's $100,000 or more, you've got to go to the provost or president and get approval from your collections committee at the board of trustees. So the American Museum of Natural History has in their handbook that they can sell fossils. Now they don't, but they legally can. And if they're a 501c3 and they can, then any 501c3 can. So SVP was not happy when I point out. So then they say, hey, deascensioning is cool, and you can go ahead and follow the American Alliance of Museums. So when you go, and I'll save you the clicks, they have a whole process to follow. They say it's legitimate. Art museums do this all the time. And as long as you spend the money on the collections, then you're okay. So now here is what happens. To keep going, I wrote a lot, as you can see. This is actually only 5,000 words. I wrote 12,000. I discovered this, at govdeals.com. I could not believe that the University of Northern Iowa sold public specimens from public lands, and they sold them at auction on a government website. And then I learned that the National Park Service had a bed that was in a Civil War place. This is a public, you're not supposed to sell things from public land or publicly specimens, but they discovered it was the wrong bed. So it's 1866, can't use it in 1865. So they got to get rid of it. So they ask, hey, does anyone want an 1866 bed in the Park Service? Well, the Park Service says no. So that thing will end up at Gov Deals or one of the other government auction houses, the legitimate auction houses of the government, where you can buy your government auction tanks and your desks. Well, occasionally I can see a fossil showing up. So so fossils can be sold. There are ways that are built in, because the real world example was the San Diego Museum of Natural History in 2012 decided we're only focusing on SoCal specimens. So we've got all these specimens that Charles Sternberg retired in San Diego and donated to the museum, or sold at a small price, a bunch of fish from Kansas in the Cretaceous. And they want to talk about 5-year-old mammals, 10-year-old Miocene mammals. 70-year-old fish have no bearing in our mission. So they send them to auction. Ironically, the auction the Dueling Dinosaurs went to originally. And every paleontologist community got all upset and said, you can't do that. Well, it's within the mission statement. They changed their mission. No one wants these specimens, so they were just going to make a few. They could have thrown them away. I have been part of museums where you got to throw stuff in a dumpster. We have thrown things away because there's not enough space, and we've got new stuff coming in, and it's no longer what we're studying. And we tried to give it away to other museums, and no one wanted it. And if we sell it, you catch Hades. If someone finds out you sold something, people go nuts. So it's easier to just quietly let it go into the dumpster. It's terrible, but it's true. It's rare. I don't want to make it sound like a common practice, but it does happen. And most people my age have stories of where it happened, and it was unfortunate. So the technology that exists today, these things could be at least digitally scanned, saved, and then where do you stop? So it is a messy time. As Homo sapiens, we did not grow up with technology. As a society, the technology is outpacing our ethics and our morals, and we don't know what to do.
And from your side, and looking at it from this, and in my perspective, and like you said, you're talking about the CT scans and how like beneficial that is for just tech science in general. Everything that you have shown me today, everything that all the fossils, let's say it's 2, 3, 4 terabytes per museum worth of CT scans, because images, I don't know how much a scan really is, but I can't imagine.
Yeah, no, that's right on. That you're right on point.
Okay, so that's a thumb drive, dude. That's a thumb drive these days. So you could literally have a hard drive.
7 28 terabyte drives in front of me right now.
Okay, so that's nothing.
Right.
That's nothing. That is a box.
4 terabytes just because.
Yeah, you can go to Costco
just in case.
You got a Costco box, and you could just throw them all in there, and it's literally an entire. Absolutely, let me show. I'm all about that. Yeah,
I have to go soon, but I'm going to hit you.
Yes.
While we're being controversial and sharing crazy things that I shouldn't be sharing, and I know someday I'm going to regret this, but I don't regret it because you guys are awesome. I want to share with you this tweet that came out a few days ago. Denver Fowler, great guy, wonderful paleontologist. So sometimes you just find them like this. Public lands, dinosaurs. This one is big. However, it would be nice to find something scientifically significant. So here's a beautiful tooth. Look at that. Look at those serrations. Phenomenal Tyrannosaur tooth. Now, I don't know if you guys watched that auction, but Tyrannosaur teeth sold for before $60,000 and $80,000. One sold for $60,000,
tooth?
$80,000 for a tooth. Now it had a root on it and it was bigger, but a T-Rex tooth is selling $10,000 an inch or more. That tooth could sell for $10,000, $5,000. and could fund an entire field season or at least an entire dig site. Museums are rife with teeth. I keep wondering when some museum's going to just sell their teeth that are not scientifically significant, or at least a bunch of them, sell off $100,000 worth. Total paleo funding from grants in a year on average is $1 million. Now that the funding has been slashed, I doubt it'll come to half that next year with all the changes made in the government. So the dinosaur researchers have no coin. And that's going to be a problem for grad students trying to do work. And of that $1 million, I'd say 75, 80% of it was from things like the NSF. They gave multi-$100,000 awards to one lab. So one museum gets 60% of the entire paleo budget for a year, leaving everyone else fighting for pennies. So Fossil Crates donates. We give back a percentage of everything we sell to fund research. We fund field seasons for graduate students, for museums, because we put our money where our hearts are. We started only because COVID shut our museum down for 18 months. We didn't start, oh, we want to go make a bunch of money, which we haven't. But we started to make money and we're like, well, that money's cool, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather see the science flourish. So what bothers me is, and maybe this will jinx it, none of these guys that have bought or have sold these big giant specimens have given any money to the community at large. When the gentleman that sold the Ceratosaurus, it just happened, but he has not given any money back to paleo. He's a commercial paleontologist. He figured the market's hot, I can make a bunch of money. The guys that give, like the guy that bought Apex, thank you, great, cool. But he donated an endowed chair to the American Museum of Natural History. That benefits one place. So that's cool, great for them, and hope cool research comes from it. But if you donated money to, like when I was in grad school, the Dinosaur Society, the traveling Jurassic Park original Jurassic Park exhibit made a bunch of money, as you would expect, and it was printing money. And the Dinosaur Society was created to take that traveling exhibit and take all the money and give it as grants to grad students and researchers.
I like that.
It was amazing. And that's what, now we're in the business of creating traveling exhibits to do exactly that. We will give a lot, once we cover our expenses, we're going to give money back into what I call the BC grant, because my initials are great. Yeah, I'll be a kingmaker.
No ego there.
No ego. I have a spreadsheet I've been keeping since 1993 of people that have wronged me, that I have wronged, that have been wronged by others. And it's like this giant spreadsheet that people's names are on. And I will be able to atone for things I have said and have done that I felt bad about. They won't even know it. They've been forgotten. But I remember what I did in 1995, October 30th at 7 p.m. And I wish I hadn't said that. It was inappropriate. And if I can give a $5,000 grant to that person, I can cross them off my list of conscious.
There you go.
I figure I want to be that guy, or I want my team to be that group of people that gives back to paleo. And if we can do it in-house by selling casts, or imagine this craziness. What if you mentioned, Kevin, are they going to ever run out of things to find? Never. There are over 500 Triceratops skulls in museums across the world. You know how many are in the literature that have been figured? Maybe 20, probably 15. Mm-hmm. And that means there's a lot of that need to be studied. So just going into all three dinosaurs I'm naming were found in the 70s, 80s, and mid 90s. They've been sitting on shelves.
Wow.
So there's new finds happening all the time. Right now, every single person I know just about is in the field digging, and I am not. I've been traveling. So I'm kind of missing that. But I was in that car accident a couple of years ago, and it blew out 5 of my discs were splorched out. And so I will not be wielding a shovel ever again. But I got gray hair. I John Hammond it now. I show up, look around. Yeah, good job, boys. Drink time. And we're off. That's so I didn't even talk about my Japan. I went to Japan, spent almost a month there, bounced around the museums and the zoos in Japan. Went out all over. I took a a 40-day road trip from Phoenix all the way up to Canada by way of the Rockies and then back down to the Rockies. Earlier in the year, I did a similar road trip. I went up to Seattle and Victoria and then went back down the coast. Yeah, we put a lot of miles on that car, and now I've been flying everywhere.
There you go. So all I know is from this conversation is it seems that we are going to be legally obligated to have you on again, Brian.
Oh,
Like,
if you guys will listen to me, I'm
oh
happy
my
to
God.
talk.
Yeah, no, like I know we didn't get into half the stuff you and I were talking about earlier. And like I know you have so much stuff going on. And I don't want to keep you because I know you are an extremely busy person and you're getting ready to
But
go to yeah.
one thing about that is
Yeah.
I try to make time for people. People make time for things they like, and
Yeah.
I was legitimately, I couldn't find a time to slot you in. And the first shot, and thank you for doing it today and not tomorrow.
Oh yeah, no worries.
You did it on. I was like, all right, cool. I've had you on my list. I keep this list of the things I need to do, and you've been in yellow, like it's orange. It's so
You're on the
yellow.
list, Steve.
I'm on the list.
In the good side. Now you're going to be green, and then we'll start the counter again. But
There we
I'm
go.
happy to come back anytime. You guys are great.
Absolutely.
Look, one thing you did ask about the shark in the Mammoth Cave, and what I will tell you is JP Hodnett was the lead author of that, and JP is a wonderful human being. Love JP. I've known him for 30 years roughly.
Wow.
He was an Arizona lad. He did paleo, cut his teeth at the Arizona Museum, and headed east. Has been all over Maryland, running a bunch of parks there. And he's a shark expert, and you wouldn't think there's sharks in Arizona, but we have a tremendous number of shark teeth, and he got really good at identifying shark teeth within certain ages. And this mammoth cave tooth, he's part of the park system, and someone sees a tooth in the cave wall, and he goes in, and sure enough, it's a new taxon. He's been fine. He told me, he's like, yeah, we've got these shark teeth in the cave walls that are new to science. What a cool way to find shark
That
teeth.
is a really cool way to find it. Like that's pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
And we were talking about the pterosaur, the petrified forest, the guys that are up there. Bill Parker's the park director running things. Adam Marsh is their paleontologist, and their entire team is amazing. They have come up with incredibly new ways of filtering, of doing sorting of small specimens. And I was there not too long ago, and they showed me how they took under a microscope a little. I'm a sauropod guy, so I would have, the whole bucket was overburdened for me. But to them, it was treasure. And they found something not much bigger than the head of a pin, like a needle, one of the little sticking pens. Think of the two heads. And he recognized he'd seen something similar in shape and color. And he built the lower jaw of a caecilian, which is a legless amphibian. I couldn't believe it. And it clicked right in place. And these guys are revolutionizing using digital technology on microscopic animals. And they have found, I don't know, 200 taxa in the petrified forest. All of these little tiny critters that live underfoot, frogs, salamanders, caecilians, turtles. Then they've got the phytosaurs, and now they got a pterosaur. They are finding the most fragile, tiniest bones. So if any of your watchers like small critters, go volunteer at the petrified forest, because the work they're doing is bleeding edge. They're young, they're hip. They named their taxon Funky Vermis, the funky worm. So they were listening to some funk album from the 70s, and that's where they got inspired from. These guys are just doing, and gals are doing next level science on the cool side that my sauropods would have, they weren't around then, but they would have happily tronched through and wiped it all out. But these guys are picking them up.
That's awesome. That we'll definitely give them a shout out. We'll put on their links and everything for our listeners and all that. So I think this is an amazing spot to wrap up. Not because I don't want to listen to you more, Brian, but I know you have a big day and you've got a lot going on for you, sir. So let's go ahead and let's wrap this up on our side. As always, please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you're listening to podcasts. And if you are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please remember to rate and review. We need, and love, love, love. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, so please like and follow us at DNA Pod or on our webpage, www.nerddnapod.com. I'm your host, Steve Pugh, as with me, who came in at the end and has been pretty quiet for the most part, which is weird.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt Brian. He was on.
No, he goes on his tangents and it's awesome. And It was Sam and Kevin, my wonderful co-hosts. And as always, the door is always open to you, sir. Dr. Brian Curtice of fossilcrates.com. Sir, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so much for everything you do. Good luck, Godspeed, and sir, please go get some rest.
Thank you all kindly. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, and good night.
All right.
Gonna make a big